Thank y'all for being here. We'll call to order the Tuesday, March 31st, 2026 meeting of the 2025 Capital Program Advisory Committee. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of the March 4th, 2026 meeting minutes. We have a motion. Can we get a second, please? Can we have a second? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Thank y'all. Tonight we have two great presenters. We have Paulette Hartman and Caroline Wagner, so if you'll take it away.
Okay, yes, Trudy, I know y'all are gonna miss Trudy and she misses y'all, but she had another obligation tonight, so Caroline and I are gonna do the best we can to present this information. So tonight we're really just gonna summarize where we've landed on the bond propositions thus far. And then we're also going to show you a video of a new fire station in Euless that just opened in the last year, so you can kind of get a feel for newer fire stations since our newest one is 20 years old. And then when Caroline presents about the service center, I think they're going to run through some pictures of a service center redo project that they just completed in Grapevine recently. So that way you'll kind of have that information, and then we'll kind of open it up for questions. So I think we are getting close to wrapping up your work. You'll also note at the end, I'm just going to go ahead and not bury the headline, but I think we're going to suggest that you all not meet on April 7th, which is next week. And the main reason is because we won't have the preliminary estimates from Tarrant County Appraisal District yet. We get them in mid-April. And so we would then continue with the April 21st meeting that y'all have planned, so that we can present updated estimates on tax rate impact with the new appraisal information. So there's that, and we'll go through that again at the end. But so just starting out with where we ended up, we've ended up through your input with 4 propositions to recommend for general obligation bonds. So Joe just walked in, so I have to let him know that Trudy is not going to be here tonight. So Caroline and I are doing the presentations. So I just need to let you know. Don't want to disappoint you too much. Okay, so we've ended up with 4 propositions, and based on the input we've received and the discussions you all have had. And so you can see there we have fire stations 2 and 3, and we would recommend proposing those as one proposition at $26.3 million. And then we have streets, which Caroline will go through this in more detail in a few minutes after I go through the fire station projects. But the streets amount that you all landed on is $84.26 million, and that covers all the streets through the green line on the lists that we've been going through in the meetings. And then for the service center, we've ended up at $24.7 million for that project. And when I go through that project, or Caroline's actually going to cover that part of it, when she goes through that project in detail, we also have a listing of everything that gets done out at the service center to get started on. I know you all don't want to move forward in the bond proposition with calling it the service center, because it really doesn't say what it does. So we're going to try to start you brainstorming on what could we call that would encompass and kind of tell the story of what actually happens out at the service center. And then lastly, but not least, is the library expansion project at the $10.7 million. So I'm going to go through the fire station projects, and then Caroline's going to go through the remainder of the projects. But as you recall, we're proposing to rebuild 2 of the fire stations in our city. They're the 2 oldest fire stations, Station 2 and Station 3. Station 2 was built in 1990, and it's 7,154 square feet. And Station 3 was built in 1980, and it's 9,892 square feet. The total for both projects would be estimated at $26.3 million. And then you can see the details there on the renovation. So 10,712 square feet for Station 2, 12,883 square feet for Station 3. And it would include a design that is a more modern design that gives the ability to improve the health and safety of firefighters, allow for the decontamination of bunker gear and that sort of thing. Fitness room enhancements, the age and condition of the current facilities, you all toured them, so you saw the age and the condition of the current facilities. It would have an improved facility layout with additional space, and the bunk rooms would be now in kind of like the modern style of the bunk rooms. The offices for the battalion chiefs there and captains would be more modern office facilities that they can office out of while they're at the station. And the locations that will be considered will be close to those current locations, because you don't want to decrease response time. So there's a very kind of scientific method for choosing a location for a fire station to get the best response times for the area. So now I think we have the video.
Good morning, it's Eric Cook here at Euless Fire Station number 2. We'd hope to bring you guys here personally, but I understand your schedule has been busy and you're a little limited on time. So we're going to give you a walkthrough of Euless's newest fire station. It's been open for a year. It went into design in late 2022, early 2023, just to give you a reference as to how long this process has taken. So as you can see, this beautiful building fits in well with the industrial neighborhood. They've used industrial features. That's why you've got a flat roof. That's why you have some of the bollards that look industrial. So the city of Euless spent significant effort to make sure that their station fit in with the community. This is a 4-bay station. It's 2 stories, and we're going to take you through it. One of the first features they've incorporated for the safety of the firemen is the access and the doorbell. So when this doorbell rings, the video camera displays that image on multiple screens throughout the station, so they can see who's trying to get into the lobby. Okay, we're standing in the front entry lobby to the station. One of the features we talked about was an EMS room that has access to the apparatus bay, or at a minimum doesn't take us into the living quarters of the station. So in front of me is the primary entrance into the living quarters from the lobby, and then to my left is access into the EMS. Once in here, they can be evaluated and treated by the crew in the station, and then if there's a need for transport, they can exit out this door, and we'll come to the back side of it, but they can exit out this door right into the apparatus bay, and again, that keeps them outside of the living quarters. Okay, had we come in the primary entrance, immediately to our right is the watch room. So this is the area that the medics and firemen can do their reports. They've got all their batteries and equipment for daily checks. Now we've got our captain's office. This is his office, bedroom, and bathroom. What's unique to this room is that there's an office associated, as he is the officer in the station, but each of the bedrooms at this station do have an ensuite bathroom. I did ask if that led to restrooms being cleaner or dirtier. I was surprised. I had anticipated that they would be less clean, but they said ownership provided some cleanliness, so glad to hear that. Standing in one of 3 laundry rooms at this station, and you might ask why 3, but we've talked about the clean and dirty side, and so we'll go to the other side that has the extractor, and then a laundry room for uniforms in the event that guys are coming back from a fire. They don't bring the dirty into the clean. So again, this is 2 stories, so there's a laundry room downstairs and a laundry room upstairs. This has 2 washers and 2 dryers and a wet sink. Okay, we're standing in the day room. We've got stadium seating for 8. This is just a rest and relaxation area. You can see they've got plenty of storage. The entryway hallway has plenty of storage. They've maximized their space because we eventually run out of space. One of the things I do want to point out, this alerting system, this strobe, depending on what piece of equipment is dispatched, it'll be red for fire, it'll be blue for EMS, and if it's both the medic and the engine going, it'll be split red and blue. So just another way to alert guys without the loud tone. Okay, like in any station, the kitchen is a primary gathering area. They've got a beautiful facility. As you can see, a couple of microwaves, both a prep sink and a regular sink, nice stove oven set up. And then the beauty here is their outdoor patio area, and I know we talked about some patio area just to have a little R&R, so let's step out there and see what they've got. This is directly off the kitchen. They've got seating. They can sit out here in the evening and relax, have some conversation. They've got all their barbecue set up. You can see they've also put a drive-through kind of pass-through window so that as they're doing food prep, they can just pass stuff back and forth. I'm going to suggest to you that that's an HVAC savings, that the door's not opening and closing all the time, but you'll probably call me out on that. It certainly is convenient and a nice feature. And then one of the real nice design features here, to my right is the weight room. Okay, they got a beautiful weight facility here. The only thing they did comment on is that it has all the equipment, but if they were going to want to do some functional movement in inclement weather, they wish this space was still double the size. This is more storage and a little more challenging with some of the workouts we do where we pull out barbells and do box jumps and do those kind of things. So always looking for that square footage. This is certainly a great setup. They've got adequate equipment. And again, the remoteness of the weight room, just being under the awning and separate from the building is a real benefit. They also have alerting in here, speakers, and again, the strobes that indicate whether it's an engine, a medic, or both. Okay, we're standing on the back apron. As you guys can see, this area is available to firemen to work out on. It's fully secured and fenced, has a controlled gate access, so their personal property is protected throughout their shift. They return from a call, they pull in through the back gate and into the apron. We'll note that these garage doors are a little different than any we have. All of ours are vertical doors, and these are horizontal doors. That purchase price is a little higher, but their maintenance is reported to be significantly lower with the horizontal. Okay, we're just off the main hallway that we walked down coming in through the lobby. Here's the fire pole, second floor bedrooms. So there's a stairwell, fire pole, there's also an elevator in the station. Okay, we're in the second floor great room. Right now this is kind of set up, can be a training area, can be a recreation area. But Ulyss also took the time, spent the money to pre-wire and set this up for expansion. In the event this station became a double company, it's already set up to frame out and make into additional bedrooms. In the meantime, they're taking advantage of it as a training and recreational area. And just to your left, you can see the top of the slide pole. And this hallway is the primary bedrooms. They've got additional storage lining the hallway. And then there's several bedrooms, all identical to this one. So they've got the locker space for all three firemen assigned to the shift, a small desk, bed. Each bedroom has an ensuite bathroom. Okay, let's see if I can figure out their alerting system a little bit. What I'm able to do here is identify what unit I'm riding. So I could be riding engine 552, medic 552, or truck 552. And I can highlight one of those, and then I can pick the volume and the brightness of the alerting light. So I'm not being woken up and having that epinephrine dump And this is a much healthier system. This way, if the medic gets up, the truck doesn't have to get woken up, or vice versa. We talked briefly the last time I visited with you guys about the medical effects of having that adrenaline dump and then not getting up and doing anything, and the long-term effects that has on somebody's cardiac health. So this is a smart system. It's better for our firemen, and it's an investment in their long-term health. Okay, we're in the apparatus bay, and a couple of things we want to point out. One, they don't have the Plymavent system, which is the drop-down exhaust removal system that attaches to the exhaust pipe of each apparatus. They have a high-volume fan, and then they have sensors in the station that create a negative pressure and do the exhaust removal when that sensor reaches its level. So they've got a little cleaner ceiling. If you guys have seen it in the video thus far, it's blue, and that's designed to keep birds out. They've got drop cords for all their apparatus. They have drop air for tires and water cans. So the side of the station we were just on is the clean side: bedrooms, kitchen, workout facility. The dirty side is the area we're about to go to, but the idea here is that no gear or uniforms that have been exposed to any carcinogens will end up on the clean side of the station. Okay, so here's the third laundry room. They've got the gear extractor. That's where we wash our bunker gear, and then firemen can come into here and get their uniforms into a washing machine without having to bring it onto the clean side of the station. So that's why 3 laundry rooms. Again, with our clean versus dirty side, all the bunker gear storage is on the dirty side, and this unit, different from ours, is that it's got a separate air handling system. So this isn't sharing dirty air with any portion of the clean side, where we have that challenge in a couple of our stations now. Again, with the cancer prevention, they have exhaust fans that are hooked to a sensor, so when exhaust levels are too high in the apparatus bay, these exhaust fans move a significant amount of air, draw a negative pressure, and bring all the exhaust out. We address that currently with our Plymavent system. Those are the big yellow hoses you've seen hanging down in the fire station that attach to the exhaust pipe of every apparatus. Current technology is demonstrated this is a efficient, cleaner, less maintenance intensive way to keep the apparatus bay at appropriate levels. Okay, this is the SCBA compressor room. This is where we fill our air bottles. Again, just wanted to point out that this is on the dirty side of the station. Again, that intentional effort to keep a clean and a dirty side and not cross-contaminate those. Okay, this is the mezzanine over the bunker gear room and the gear cleaning room. They utilize this space as additional training area. So you can see they built a maze in here. So this area is kind of left up to the firemen to address their training needs. Got a big storage closet on the end of the mezzanine. And this is where they store their gear that's not being used. Some of the highlights we liked about Euless, first and foremost, was the layout. Every bit of that station was very intentional. I think that was obvious in what you saw in the EMS room, where a patient could enter through the lobby, never access the fireman living area, and go right out to the ambulance. Lots of examples there. And then the security that they provided with the video doorbell and perimeter fencing. So well designed, a very intentional station that would meet our needs.
It's a 1 acre site.
Okay, so we're going to move on, and Caroline will run through the next few bond proposition projects, and we'll have time for Q&A.
All right, so talking about the streets, and as we discussed last time, the total of the residential and major streets is just over $84 million. And the table here just runs through what you've seen before, taking a look at those red, blue, and green lines that we had shown on, I think, last meeting. You got your standalone street lists for both residential and commercial that had those red, blue, and green lines, and also what continues on down that list, just to show that this wasn't just about stopping at a certain funding level. But that 84 million it addresses 33 residential streets, 22 major streets, and you can see up top in the text there, it says just over $84 million and up to 50 streets. So that $84 million that price tag is the current estimate of all of those street projects, all 55 street projects. So the thought is, for purposes of presenting that to the public, what we want to do, because that 84 million doesn't include inflation and we can't do all those projects in year one, it's going to take some time. For purposes of presenting that to the public, rather than saying 55, we might say 50. And then with the goal, of course, to be able to construct all of those streets to the green line. At your seats today, as a complement to the tables that you got last time, you've got a map also, and you can see on the map the project numbers, red for major, blue for residential, correlate to those street lists. So that's just helpful for those of you who don't have the street network memorized. Any questions on streets? Okay, so we'll go on to the library project. And so the proposed library project is that community room expansion at $10.7 million. Just as a reminder, it's to add 6,500 square feet to the building and accompanying bathroom renovations. That includes the fixtures, furniture, et cetera. And the reason for that, as we've discussed before, is because of just how the library's programs have grown. The philosophy of the library has changed over years, and there's just so much more that goes on. It's not just people coming in and borrowing books. And you can see on the screen here, and Cecilia talked about that when we took the tour, all of the programs that the library has. And I know it's not specifically listed on here. She does mention the Behind the Book series, but I know that they've got some really exciting announcements coming up this year. That program where they bring in, listed authors, popular authors, to come in and be available to speak to the public at our facility. That program is really expanding, which is exciting, but it brings the need for seating. And this is a look at the attendance. Obviously, this is one of the summer programs. This is not in the library, as you can probably recognize. This is in Grand Hall because they exceeded the capacity of what the library can offer, which is the whole impetus for that community room project. And as you can see on here, just looking at the attendance numbers, once again, kind of keying into that Behind the Book, they exceeded the capacity almost 90% of the time. Any questions about the library project? Yes, sir.
Still can't believe we don't need additional disabled parking spaces if we can increase that. But I just would like for somebody to double check that with the designer. It makes no sense that we're increasing the size that much, and that I guess we had over-designed before, and this doesn't make sense to me. But it may be true.
The good thing about parking is that's always something that we can look at there. I mean, the space that the library would be expanding into was kind of already there as a placeholder to allow for that expansion. It does feel like a fairly tight site, but I think there are opportunities, should the need arise, to put in at least single-digit more numbers of spaces if we needed to. Allocate more specifically to handicap or disabled parking over general spaces. That's certainly something that we can take a look at. The scope of the project itself, that can happen completely independently of it. Okay, moving on to the Municipal Service Center expansion. And once again, just as a reminder, that's consolidation of park operations, public works operations, and fleet. Today, the Public Works Service Center and general fleet coexist in the same building, and then we've got fire fleet in a different building. So we're looking at expansion of the square footage when needed, and I don't want to read all of the bullets to you. I think you remember going out there on the tour. It's a facility that was built in the 80s. We have grown significantly since then, and so what we're looking for is for a facility that will consolidate those different work groups together, take advantage of efficiencies and the better work that will bring as we bring those groups together, but also some of that modern technology. In the 80s, yes, we had computers, but they were, my guess is maybe a handful within the building, and now every employee is required, not sitting at a desk all day, but there is a required computer interface with so many more employees than there used to be. It's a much more technology-based operation, even though it is also a significant field presence. And just to kind of get a little bit more into the weeds, looking at the parks component, they've got 25 staff members, and this is where the guys who are maintaining the athletic fields are park facilities themselves. They're operating out of the building that used to be the animal shelter out there today. So we would be looking to bring them in to that larger consolidated building along with Public Works. And then Public Works itself is 86 staff members. SCADA is a key component. That's that utility system that monitors the city's water distribution and some of our sewer facilities as well. Traffic monitoring, training center, and that field base for all of those 86 personnel. For fleet, we've got 13 staff members. I think you recall probably going into the bay. It is not air conditioned. And they're operating within basically the same footprint that was provided in the mid 80s, and yet we have a significantly larger fleet. And this is what that looks like. On the left is the existing facility, and on the right, that is what kind of a conceptualized footprint of that consolidated building would look like. I really feel shown up by fire department in their video. We certainly didn't do a video. I wish I had thought about it, but we did. We had gone to the city of Grapevine. You may recall they had a tornado hit, I think it was in 2023. It ripped the roof off of their service center, off of a part of it anyway. They actually worked within the existing shell, but they completely modernized what was inside. So we went out there and got a tour and just took some pictures. Every site is a little bit different. They have a larger site as a whole, but you can see some of the things that they opted to do. They have covered storage for a lot of their equipment. This is what their break room looks like. I don't know if you remember our break room. It does not look like this. This is set up, in a way.
You had one?
We did have one, yeah. I think ours has one small kind of residential style refrigerator. This has the ability to, really have those field crews be able to, eat together, bring their food from home, prepare it, safely in a more cleanly facility. And another look at that break room. And the finishes, it's a really impressive building, but if you take a look at it, the finishes are also very durable. They've got, hard surfaces. It's stylistically, it's fantastic, but it is built for its purpose, which is housing those field personnel. This is one of their training rooms there in the building. And then just a few more snapshots. On the left, you'll see that's one of their medics in the bay. They were able to condition that fleet space. The center picture is, I don't know if you recall, we had some of our, our utility or our street meeting areas where they were basically meeting in an equipment cage. They had just put tables in there amongst the shelves housing inventory, and how they were able to do it in Grapevine is they've got those dedicated meeting spaces with the lockers for the crews. The supervisor offices are upstairs. They're able to see people coming and going. And then just the picture on the right is just, it's a big difference as far as well-lit, air-conditioned storage for inventory. And that kind of ties into one of the things that Paulette had mentioned. I think the title for this section of the presentation was the Municipal Service Center Project, which is a mouthful. And for those of us who've worked here for years, we refer to the service center. We know it that way. Many of you had probably never been there before, and so part of this effort, as we look to maybe take that to the public, is what do we want to call it? And these are just some ideas, and as Paulette said, the thought is to give you some things to think about and encourage you to brainstorm, based on what you've learned, what you knew before, and what you think is going to resonate with your friends, neighbors, and the public, to be able to explain exactly what this facility is.
What does Grapevine call theirs?
They call it the Grapevine Service Center. So, which is, you'll find that a lot of them do.
And we don't expect to come up with a name tonight. We'll send a survey out in the next few weeks to where you all can have some opportunity to brainstorm, and we'll bring that back to y'all to see kind of what popped up, what were the common themes in a name, if you all wanted to think of a name. So
Similar size, I mean, Grapevine's not as many city employees, I don't think, as we do. But seeing how much room they have there, does that make you feel good about how much you kind of planned for in our budgetary process to build this, since theirs is only 3 years old or so?
I believe so. I mean, they did similar things. They have employees from different divisions. They've got parks there. They've got environmental health there. They are smaller, but Grapevine also has treatment facilities. So they've got a bit of a different staffing group. Of course, all the treatment folks aren't housed there at the service center. But I think more than anything, it's just a really good example of modernizing what that facility looks like, in the same way that you wouldn't think much has changed in the world of firefighting in 40 years, but it has. And things like it's not quite as dramatic on the public works side as it is on the fire side. But when they refer to that clean and dirty side, you think about our crews coming in from the field, and they're dealing with some dirty stuff, and they all come in the same door. And so coming into a facility that keeps that in mind, even though our guys aren't living there, barring some kind of crazy winter storm, it's still it's a reasonable and doable way to set up a building that is safer for the employees and more functional. Yes,
Healthier.
and healthier, for sure. Any questions or comments on the service center, or whatever you want to call it?
How much was it Grapevine?
I need to find out. I don't know, Bo, if you remember, I think they may have started at 12 and ended up increasing the.
They were had an existing shelter.
They did. And we can certainly find that. Yes, sir.
I think with the naming, we need to incorporate the word fleet, so that's so people understand that's what it is.
Okay, it's a good idea.
And there was a big area back there for storing the material that they need for sewer and water and all that stuff that we saw. For repairs.
At our facility,
At the Grapevine.
I don't remember if you saw material storage. I know, I mean, they have a much larger site itself, so I suspect it's there.
I want to say it was on the like the eastern property line where they had the warehouse kind of.
Okay.
I think that's where this was.
Yeah, and something it's not ideal, but for us also we've got some satellite facilities where we've got some material storage as well. We've got a lot at the end of Rita Beth, where we keep some of the sand for winter storms and so forth. So because we don't have quite, a spacious a site, we do make use of other locations as well. But part of this also is coming in. Just because we've always done it one way doesn't mean we need to always do it that way. So having somebody come in and make recommendations for a much more efficient way to manage those things is going to make sense. But yes, we need to make sure that things like that are accounted for. Okay, I'll turn it back over to Paulette.
Before you get off that, is it too early to ask a question about the fire station?
no, yeah, we needed to go back to that anyway. Yeah.
No, the fire station is fairly new in Euless. On a comparable square footage cost or whatever, have we looked into that also? And are our numbers hitting the market from what they built?
So I believe our numbers utilize that. So what we usually do when we prepare, and the chief's shaking his head over there, but we prepare our cost estimates based on the latest fire station or light construction and the cost per square foot. And so that's what our estimates are based on. Yes.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add there is the architect did give us a figure for projection in the future of basically 0.8% per month for cost increase, so they factored that in of what we were projecting our time frame to be. So that's where we came up with those starting numbers.
Almost 10% per year.
And if you look at what that station cost, if we could build today, we could save money over what our projections are. But knowing the time frame that we're facing, we feel like we're in a good place.
Were there other, go ahead, John.
Maybe I missed something. Was the plan to build exactly where the existing fire stations are, or are we looking at having to acquire property to build onto the new fire stations?
So-
No decision's been made, really.
Okay.
Yeah, but
It's comparable as far as response times
Right.
in the general vicinity. If we start saying we're gonna go buy that land and let that out to the public, then
Yep.
boy, the price just went up.
Yeah.
So-
Make a decision somebody down the line.
we've just a second. We've thought about it, and we haven't really decided yet. We've considered whether we can build on the same property. That causes some issues in terms of what happens to that crew and that response time when we're reconstructing, because both of those stations need to be completely redone. There's not an existing shell space, but we're also looking for other land that would be in that same area in general, that would not compromise response time. So right now, like Richard said, there's not been any decision made, but we're looking at ways either we could build it on the same properties or if there's other properties that are available in those areas.
Now, where I'm going with this is how much does it swing the project cost of build on site versus having to go out and buy property? And have we looked at how much site A versus site B having to acquire it would actually, I mean, what's the swing range?
Yeah, so it really doesn't, we have factored into these estimates some land cost, which is generally the value of what we would see. How many acres do we need again? Or Stan, you may come up so I don't get it wrong, but so it doesn't swing it very much, because that's a fixed cost on the land, right, that we're estimating. The other thing is it depends on the site in terms of the cost to construct. So right now, for example, at Station 2, it would cost us a significant amount of money to rebuild on that site, because we'd have to go 2-story, but there are also some significant issues. There's a drainage channel that runs behind that property, and there are already significant issues with kind of deterioration and erosion there that we would have to address in a new foundation and those types of things.
So Station 2 is likely land acquisition.
Yes, and in Fire Station number 3, it would be the same thing. In order to accommodate the size of station we would need, if we built on that existing site, you would also need to go 2-story. And so that changes, again, some of your construction costs. So Chief can answer that probably in more detail.
We've had the architect look at both those sites, existing sites, and tell us what the requirements would be. They'll tell you that's not the best option, usually not the best option, but it's going to depend on what other options we're looking at the time. But they are doable. Yeah.
And parcel size needed is?
Well, it varies a little bit on the parcel layout, the access to the roads, those kind of things, but roughly 1.3 acres would be ideal. Is what if we were shopping, we'd say, hey, if we can find 1.3 or better, we would be happy with those.
Gary,
The 2 current locations.
go ahead, stay.
What's the value as far as to sell them once we're out of there?
In general, yes. Of course, that changes, as time goes on, but yeah. We haven't factored into the project cost, if that's what we're asking, but we know in general what we could get for those pieces of property. Yeah.
Are they prime property that people would want to buy them? Would there be an interest?
Probably Station 3 would be, because of its location on Davis. Station 2 would be a little bit more of a unique opportunity for someone, but it could be, yeah. Other questions?
So just to summarize, it usually be more expensive to build on the site, even if you could do it practically, which may not be possible.
Yeah.
And 2, we're going to acquire land, but then we'll have that land that we can put back on the market. So it's kind of a lot, right?
Yeah, and it would likely be sold for something that would generate property tax and sales tax revenue as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, only thing I'd add there is we have talked to a couple of cities recently that have built on existing sites and did temporary housing to keep those companies in that general area, response area. You know, with the desire to keep the response times up and that kind of thing. And all of them that we've talked to says, hey, avoid that if you can. It adds a lot more cost than what they expected when they went into it, and added a lot more in the time that it took to get the building down and get the new one back up. So,
Other questions? Mark?
So on the streets, if you have a certain budget for the streets, you come under budget, you're able to add more streets to that, the way I understand it. What happens on the fire stations if you come under budget? Are you all able to purchase gear, or what is that remaining budget in that?
We would only be able to use it for something related to construction of a fire station. So no, we would not be able to use it for gear. We might be able to use it for FF&E for those fire stations, but that's one of the reasons we wanted to put those together, because what could also happen is if, you know, one's kind of tracking over, one's under, you know, they can share that bond money instead of separately. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. All right, other questions? These are good. Okay, so speaking of the bond propositions, that was a good segue into this part of the discussion, in that next time we will also bring you back some recommended bond proposition language that we'll have worked with our city attorney on. And recall that we have to put like projects together, or it has to be at least separated enough to where people know what they're voting on. So we couldn't put library with fire station. We couldn't put the street projects together with one of the facility projects, because legally our bond council would not approve on that prop language, because they're not like projects. It has to give enough information and be separated enough for voters to know what they're voting on. So that's why we've recommended the proposition separation that we have. And again, the pass or fail, these propositions would be standalone items. So like Mark in his question was asking, if let's say the service center was under budget and we needed more money on street improvements, we couldn't take bond money for the service center and take it and use it for streets. It could only be used for those street projects. So this is where we've ended up based on your discussion over the last several months in terms of the general obligation bond propositions that you would recommend to the city council to call an election for. So there's 4 propositions, and it would be the fire station rebuilds at $26.3 million, street improvements at $84.26 million, the municipal service center expansion. Again, the name municipal service center may change if y'all come up with something really great, but $24.7 million, and then the library expansion at $10.7 million. And then we have talked about some projects that in the library that, based on your input, we would not recommend for voters to go for general obligation bonds. But I'm understanding the consensus of the committee is that those projects should be looked at to be funded through other sources of funds, not general obligation funds, but maybe certificates of obligation or other grant or other sources of funding for major capital projects like this. Reserves, some of these are smaller projects that we may be able to utilize reserves for. So again, we're calling those, for the purposes of the presentation, non-GO project recommendations, just so that it's clear that you all haven't forgotten about those and you think that they should be done. You just think that we could find another source of money to do those projects. So are there any questions on kind of how we've grouped them together, the proposition language and the general obligation bond propositions versus the non-general obligation bond projects?
It's not exact that, but not now, but would you mind having somebody next time we meet? I've been saying this is going to be the most aggressive and most that any committees have recommended to the council for the street improvements.
Yes.
But would somebody come back and just tell me what's the most a bond proposition has ever suggested for street improvements up to now?
It was in 2020. 49.9 million was the official amount, 50 million. And that actually is the largest bond proposition we'd had in the city. And it was only to cover streets, but it was 50 million. Okay? Yeah.
Just a clarification on the library extension, that also includes the restrooms over there, right, too?
Yes, it includes the restrooms in that kind of southwest corner, yes, the southwest corner of the building as well, right.
And piggybacking on Joe, what Joe just asked, how many streets did we last time? Of course, we were costing on us
27 streets.
double the streets.
Mm-hmm,
Okay, and not quite double the money.
mm-hmm, correct, yep.
And so with that being said, if, I guess it's just like a pass or fail type situation, right?
That's right.
Not a-
The majority of the voters say yes or they say no, and we go on about our business. And then remember that if a bond proposition is voted no by the voters, then we can't spend any money on that project for at least 3 years. So that's the other consideration.
So we can't spend any money from any source at all for 3 years?
Correct.
When did,
If you get a pothole on the street that we can't fix?
Well, no, but we have specific street projects that we're outlining here, right? No, we do potholes through another program, which is our preventive street maintenance program, right?
You have a pothole on your street, Joe?
No.
Mike, hold on, Mike had it.
Would these be introduced as separate projects, separate bond proposals?
Yes. Yes, these would be the separate, so it would be, maybe proposition 1, 2, 3, 4 laid out in this way, yeah. I think John had your hand up next.
So if you're saying the library expansion GO was voted down, that we could not issue COs or any of the other CO covered items?
No, because the bond proposition,
I was wrong or no?
couldn't do the
that's in, you couldn't do anything that was included in this library expansion piece under the 10.7.
Okay,
But these other projects,
yeah, okay.
right, because,
Okay. That could be
exactly,
done through COs.
yes.
So,
Eloise?
We will know by the time the bond is actually going to be presented, whether it would be a rebuild or a new build?
Not necessarily, no. There,
Famous,
yeah,
it's kind of,
fire station rebuilds, right, yeah. And again, you'll start to take a look at proposition language next time. These would be, so if we want to tweak the proposition title, we can do that because that's what we would use in our educational program. So, to your point, either way, I guess it's a rebuild because the stations do exist today, but to your point, it could be brand new or it could be, well, it's still going to be brand new because we're going to demolish what's there if we built on site and do, so yeah, we can discuss that further as we finalize the language.
Gary was actually.
Mike, as we discussed before, there's going to be probably some kind of synopsis or summary together that the residents of North Richland Hills can read before going to vote, so they understand that. Will you explain in there to them that if they do not vote for these proposals, it will take 3 years before they come up again? Kind of,
Yes, we usually,
understand everything about it.
correct, yeah, we usually
And
kind
I
of,
know from my corporate world, it's best for most people provided in 8th grade.
right, so we'll provide an educational, and I remember what the city produces, it cannot advocate either way for any proposition, it can only, but then, correct, right, and explaining the facts, right, we will. Yeah, and also in the bond language, it has to be worded in such a way that they understand whether they're voting yes or voting no, what does that mean? So.
doesn't the Secretary of State's office have to review that, also the language on the ballot?
I believe so, and then also for cities, our bond council has to review and approve, yeah.
Let's ask the question.
Well, mine was in the same vein as Gary, so kind of going back to the 50 million versus the 84 and the sticker shock and, you know, all the things. And I remember last time we talked about, and you all even showed the example of the video, of just kind of like some education for the residents, just to make sure they are kind of understand what's at stake here, because
Yes.
that would be important.
Right. And then, like we've talked about before, members of this group can form an advocacy committee that can advocate for the projects. And so that would be something separate that would also provide information for voters. But what the city produces, yes, will be very detailed and include videos. We also would intend to do some town hall meetings related to these bond propositions, post some of the videos, even videos of our existing stations, offer opportunities, because if the bond election is called in June or the end of July, let's say, then we've got time before November where we would schedule some open houses in some of these areas so that the citizens can also come and look at what we're talking about, and then have all that information online as well in terms of what the bond propositions are, why they're needed, that kind of thing.
I would hope in that fact information that you send out, whether it be with social media or maybe in print, I know y'all do a newsletter that comes with the water bills and stuff like that. The most knowledgeable people about this program are the ones that have been sitting in this room since we started. And I hope that you'll be willing to let the city use your name that, hey, I was a committee member that did this study, because it will make an impact. Somebody that you know from your church, or somebody that lives down the street from you, or somebody that you see at the rec center or whatever, to know that, hey, I did it, and they'll ask questions. You want them to ask questions of, hey, why are we doing this? What's this service center deal? Why is that needed? Are 2 fire stations? Well, I need 2. Why not just 1? You can give them the answers, because you'll be the most knowledgeable of anyone that spent, I don't know how many hours, we probably can add it up later on, of how many hours we spent studying this and touring the sites. You know, I think it's a powerful tool just of who you are, why you're here, and the homework you've already done to tell the community, here's what we think is needed.
And we'll also ask, we'll go and, like, I know Tito and Dr. Stinson today spoke at Lions Club about the school bond program, and we'll be doing similar things once our election is called. We'll be going to different civic club meetings to present the information. We will be asking some of you to go and speak at different groups, the chamber, all of those types of things. So there will be more education, which kind of gets me into our timeline, because y'all, again, you're ahead of us. So tonight's meeting is the purpose is to just kind of finalize that project list, and then also we'll continue that work in April. And like I mentioned, we're suggesting that you not have the April 7th meeting, because we won't have all the information ready in order to finalize our estimates. So the next meeting would be April 21st, and we'd bring what we presented to you tonight is what we think is the final project list based on your input. The next meeting, we'll go through that final project list plus updated tax rate impact estimates based on our preliminary estimates that we're going to receive from TAD next month. And then from there, we would be ready to, in May, begin to finalize that property tax rate discussion and also the recommended propositions and your presentation to council, what that's going to entail. And so we would suggest that we also just meet at the first planned meeting in May, which was one of y'all have the dates. It was May 5th. Which was May 5th, but not have the second one in May, so that we can finalize whatever work you've done at that first one, and then only have the June, I think it was June 2nd meeting to finalize your recommendations to council. And then based on how much work you all get done in April and May, we may or may not need that first June meeting. But I would be assuming that Tito and Richard would be presenting the information to the council whenever y'all decide to do that. And then the rest of y'all, if you would be in attendance to support, that would be appreciated, to support your chair and co-chair of your committee.
We'll have the ability to use some of these same slides.
Yes.
Things in our presentation.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, are there any questions about the timeline and next steps? No, we'll probably take a vote at the May meeting when we have all the information together and finalized. Right now, we're just kind of going on, this is the consensus we've gathered from the input so far and discussion so far. So if you have any disagreement with this in terms of these are the projects that you've discussed and agreed of how to handle, then we probably need to hear that now, but but we would probably take an official vote of the group at that last meeting to make sure. Oh, for the date. That's going to be dependent on, yeah, we can discuss. Oh, voting on the dates, no, you don't need to vote. I mean, if there's anybody that disagrees with canceling next week's meeting, let me know, but okay.
Any other
Okay.
questions? So just to be clear, there's no meeting next week on the 7th. Our next meeting will be on the 21st of April, and the meeting after that will be on the 5th of May, and both of those will be at the NRH Center, and we'll make sure and get that email timely to you. And the reason being is early voting is going to occur at City Hall, so, at the Grand Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
Grand Hall?
at the Grand Hall. What's that, Cinco de Mayo?
Well, that's an idea, Darlisa. We'll see what we can do. We will not have margaritas, but we might have tacos. We'll
All those
see.
in favor of Darlissa bringing tacos? Thank you, Darlissa. All right, so no meeting next week on the 7th. Next meeting is April the 21st, and it'll be at the NRH.
It'll be at the Grand Hall at NRH Center. Yeah.
Okay, any questions concerning meetings? Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions of Caroline, the chief, or Colette?
Or Cecilia. Cecilia's here too.
Thank you, Cecilia. Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll move on to our public comment section. An opportunity for citizens to address the 2025 Capital Program Advisory Committee on matters which are scheduled on this agenda for consideration by the committee, but not scheduled as a public hearing. In order to address the 2025 Capital Program Advisory Committee during public comments, a public meeting appearance card must be completed and presented to the recording secretary prior to the start of the 2025 Capital Program Advisory Committee meeting. Do we have
Chair
any?
Rodriguez, we did receive 2 requests to speak. At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Daryl Bruce to the front of the room. Mr. Bruce, please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm Daryl Bruce, 8136 Sayers Lane in North Richland Hills. Been a resident in North Richland Hills since the early 90s. I recently, in 2017, moved to Sayers Lane, and I'd like to put it into consideration for making the list this year. We've requested several times to be on it, and we've always gotten bumped. We never made it all the way through. Been making requests since we lived there that due to the street conditions. I wanted to point out why Sayers is a little different than what you may be aware of. It is the streets from 1950s, and it's not your average 1950s street. Since 2017, we've constructed 18 new homes on that street. Those homes range from 600,000 to 1.2 million, and we're still on the same 1950s street. So it's not the original 12 houses that were there that are built in the 50s to the 70s. The street is not consistent to the neighborhood as it's becoming. We've recently demolished 6 more homes or created 6 more lots by demolishing 2 more homes out there. Those homes are currently under construction and recently platted. We have 1 more in the back section that was newly created. That's a lot that remains a vacant lot. So that will give us a total of 25 new homes in that neighborhood. That's equivalent to some of the subdivisions that have new streets, new utilities, but we're not having the access to the property equivalent to the homes that are being constructed there. So we'd just like to ask your consideration that we make the list this year. We are not the 1950s property. We're updating. We'd love to have a street that updates with us. Thank you for your time. Yes, ma'am. Sayers Lane. We're right there behind Gateway Church. The street dead ends. If you cross Davis, you'd go into the front office of the front door of the. It did make the cut. Well, I thought that those recommendations. It was my understanding that that list won't be finalized until May, and that streets can come in and out till then. So I was just making our. Right. Okay. So we are on your list for recommendation. We're just asking that, if they do make changes, we're hoping to stay there. We have requested for many years, and we're just making our case that in case you're not familiar with Sayers, I just wanted to tell you it's not your average 1950s street. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yes, sir, we do. At this time, I would like to call Mr. Jeff Allred to the front. Mr. Allred, please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. I'll keep this brief. I'm Jeff Allred. I live at 8129 Sayers Lane. Did I say that right? Oh. It's another Gail Sayers, anyway. We moved to North Richland Hills in 2019. We got here as fast as we could. We lived in Bedford for 20 years. And I've got a T-shirt at home that says, "The older I get, the better I was." Well, that's our street. I'm back in the 50s. It was probably something. But, back when the Dead Sea was sick, I think is when they made that street. But we have elderly residents and stuff like that. And I just challenge everybody to just go down Sayers Street with a cup of hot coffee early in the morning. Just go 30 miles an hour and see how much of it lands in your lap. It's only a quarter of a mile long. It's a short street. And we're just asking for a little bit, you don't get what you don't ask for. We're just asking for your help to keep us on the list and get that going. And I do appreciate y'all volunteering. Everybody has somewhere else they could be right now. I appreciate our neighbors coming out. There's a lot that Chris and Kim, he's an American airline pilot, and her dad turned 92 today, so y'all lost. So they stick around for as long as they could. But I do appreciate everybody coming out and doing what you do. And Mr. Blankenship, he's been very helpful. And so anyway, we're just saying, help. We appreciate you. Y'all have a good evening.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Allred and Mr. Bruce. And most of us have been through every street that we've considered. Unfortunately, I don't think I went down Sayers in the morning with coffee, but I did have my QT cup with a lid on it, so thank you. Thank y'all for coming out tonight. Thank you so much. Anything else, Jennifer? Anyone else? All right, see you. No other questions, no other comments. We stand adjourned, 7:06. Thank y'all for being here.